The station called Valora's Drift floated in the cold darkness between stars. It was old. It was loud. It smelled like fuel and strange foods and 100 different species, all living too close together. Ships came and went every hour. Traders shouted prices. Machines hummed and clanked. It was not a beautiful place, but it was a live. Park. Yuna walked through the lower docks with her head down. She wore simple work clothes. Gray pants. A dark jacket. Heavy boots that made no sound when she moved. Her black hair was tied back tight. Her face showed nothing. She was 26 years old. She had come from Earth 5 years ago, when the Galactic Union finally opened travel permits to humans. Most humans stayed home. Earth was familiar. Earth was safe, in the way that only home can be safe. But Yuna had wanted something different. She wanted to see what was out there. Now she worked as a cargo handler. It was simple work. Move boxes. Check lists. Load ships. Unload ships. The pay was enough. The work was honest. She asked for nothing more. The other workers on the station watched her as she passed. A group of Tarns stood near a fuel pump. They were tall and thin, with blue skin and large black eyes. They stopped talking when Yuna walked by. One of them made a small sound in his throat. A warning sound. The others stepped back. Yuna did not look at them. She was used to this. Humans were new to the galaxy. Most species had never seen one before. They had only heard stories. Stories about the planet called Earth. Stories about what lived there. Earth was classified as a Class 7 world. A death world. The gravity was crushing. The weather was violent. The animals were built to kill. And the humans had survived there for thousands of years. They had not just survived. They had become the dominant species. They had built cities and machines and weapons. They had tamed their world through pure stubborn will. The other species did not understand how this was possible. They looked at humans and saw something wrong. The way humans moved was too smooth, too quiet. Their eyes tracked motion too fast. They could go without sleep for days. They could eat almost anything. They healed from wounds that would kill other species. Yuna knew what they saw when they looked at her. They saw a predator wearing the shape of a person. She reached her assigned dock and found her new crew waiting. There were 3 of them. The first was Rovi. He was a Velen, which meant he looked like a large insect standing upright. He had 4 arms, a hard shell over his body, and small eyes that clicked when he blinked. He was the merchant who owned the ship. He looked at Yuna the way someone might look at a dangerous tool. Useful, but not to be trusted. The second was Kale. He was a Tauren, like the ones near the fuel pump. Tall and thin and blue. His translator hung around his neck on a silver chain. He tried to smile at Yuna, but it came out wrong. His hands were shaking slightly. The third was Bess. She was a Myrick, small and covered in soft brown fur. Her ears were large and round. Her voice was high and quick. She did not look at Yuna directly. She looked at the floor instead. Rovi stepped forward and handed Yuna a datapad. His voice was flat and businesslike. You are the human. Park Yuna, cargo handler. 3 years experience. No complaints on your record. Yuna nodded. That is correct. You will work under me on the Silver Moat. We transport goods through the Orion sector. The work is simple. Do your job. Follow orders. Cause no trouble. Understood? Understood. Rovi studied her for a moment. His small eyes clicked twice. Then he turned and walked toward the ship. Kale fell into step beside Yuna as they followed. He cleared his throat nervously. So, you are from Earth, the Death World. Yuna kept walking. Yes, I have heard many things about your planet. They say the water falls from the sky there. They say fire comes from the mountains. They say your animals have teeth the size of my arm. Some of them do. Kale made a small choking sound. Yuna was not sure if it was fear or amazement. Bess walked on Yuna's other side. Her voice was barely a whisper. Is it true that humans can break bones and keep walking? Yuna thought about this. She remembered falling from a tree when she was 12. She had broken her wrist. She had walked home anyway. Her mother had been angry. Sometimes, Yuna said. Bess and Kale exchanged a look. They did not speak again until they reached the ship. The Silver Moat was a mid-sized cargo freighter. It was not pretty. The hull was scratched and dented from years of travel. The engines made a sound like something was loose inside. But it was solid. It would fly. Yuna found her quarters in the lower deck. A small room with a bed and a locker. Nothing else. She set down her bag and looked out the small window at the station beyond. She did not notice the hooded figure standing in the shadows of the dock. She did not see how he watched her, how his eyes followed her every movement, how he smiled a cold, calculating smile. But she would learn his name soon enough. And when she did, everything would change. The Silver Moat's engines hummed to life. The ship lifted from the dock and turned toward the stars. Yuna lay down on her bed and closed her eyes. She did not know that she was being hunted. She did not know that danger was already aboard. She only knew that space was vast and dark and full of unknowns. But that was fine. She had survived Earth. She could survive anything. 3 days passed in the black emptiness between stars. Yuna fell into the rhythm of the ship. Wake up, work, eat, sleep. The cargo was simple to manage. Crates of machine parts, containers of preserved food, medical supplies for a colony world. Nothing special. Nothing dangerous. But Yuna felt something wrong. It was a feeling she could not name. A tightness in her chest. A warning in the back of her mind. The same feeling she had when walking alone at night on Earth. The feeling of being watched. The hooded passenger was named Dren. He was a Keth. His species looked like upright lizards. They had scales instead of skin. Their eyes were yellow with thin black slits. Their teeth were sharp and visible, even when their mouths were closed. They moved in a way that was slow and careful, like they were always saving their energy for something. Dren traveled with 2 guards. They never spoke. They stood behind him like shadows. Their hands never strayed far from the weapons at their belts. On the 3rd day, Dren approached Yuna in the mess hall. She was eating alone. A bowl of rice and vegetables. Simple food. She had brought it from the station because she did not trust the ship's food printer. Machines could never get the taste right. Dren sat down across from her without asking. His guards stood nearby, watching. "You are the human," Dren said. His voice was smooth and cold, like oil sliding over glass. "Park Yuna, from Earth." Yuna did not stop eating. "Yes, I have heard stories about your world. Fascinating stories. They say your planet is a Class 7, one of the most dangerous worlds in the known galaxy. They say your kind evolved in a place of constant death." Yuna said nothing. She took another bite of rice. Dren leaned forward. His yellow eyes studied her face. "They say humans can survive poison, that your bodies can heal from damage that would kill other species. They say you can run for hours without stopping, that you once hunted animals by simply chasing them until they died from exhaustion. Is this true?" Yuna set down her chopsticks. She looked at Dren directly for the first time. Some of it. Dren smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had found something valuable. "How wonderful," he said. "How truly wonderful." He stood up and walked away. His guards followed. Yuna watched them go. The warning feeling in her chest grew stronger. That night, Rovi found Yuna in the cargo bay. She was checking the straps on a stack of crates, making sure everything was secure. The ship would pass through an asteroid field tomorrow. Things needed to be tight. Rovi stood beside her. His forearms were crossed over his chest. His voice was low. "Stay away from the passenger." From Dren, Yuna kept working. Why? The Keth are dangerous people. They deal in things that most species do not speak about. Weapons, drugs, and worse. Rovi was quiet for a moment. His small eyes clicked nervously. "Living cargo," he said finally. The Keth are known for capturing rare species. They sell them to collectors, or to the fighting pits. Underground arenas where captured beings are forced to fight for entertainment. Yuna's hand stopped moving. She turned to look at Rovi. "You let someone like that on your ship?" "I did not know what he was when he bought passage. I only learned after we left. Now we are 3 days from the nearest station. I cannot remove him. I can only wait and hope he does not cause trouble." Rovi moved closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. "But you should be careful. The Keth pay high prices for rare specimens. And there is nothing rarer than a human. Nothing more valuable to their clients than a living Deathworlder." Yuna understood. She was not a passenger on this ship. She was potential cargo. Later that night, Yuna walked through the lower decks. The ship was quiet. Most of the crew was asleep. Only the hum of the engines filled the air. She turned a corner and stopped. Shadow moved behind her. She had known it was there for 3 minutes. She had heard the footsteps, felt the presence. One of Dren's guards, following her, testing her. Yuna did not run. She did not call for help. Instead, she turned around slowly. The guard stood 10 meters away. He was large, scales the color of rust. A scar ran down the side of his face. His hand rested on his weapon. Yuna looked at him. Her face showed nothing. Her body was relaxed, but her weight had shifted slightly. Her feet were planted. Her hands hung loose at her sides, ready. The guard stared at her for a long moment. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away. Yuna watched him go. Her heart was beating fast, but her breathing was slow and steady. She had learned long ago to control the fear, to use it. On Earth, fear kept you alive. Fear made you sharp. But panic got you killed. She returned to her quarters and sat on her bed. She took out her utility blade and checked the edge. It was sharp. It would cut through scales as easily as skin. She hoped she would not need it. But hope was not a plan. The next morning, Yuna entered the mess hall for breakfast. Dren was already there. He looked at her from across the room. His yellow eyes were bright with interest. "You noticed my man last night," he said. "He said you heard him coming, that you turned before he expected, that you were ready." Yuna picked up a food tray. She did not look at him. "Impressive reflexes," Dren continued. "Most species would not have noticed him at all. But you did. You knew exactly where he was, exactly when to turn." Yuna sat down at a table far from Dren. She began to eat. Dren smiled his cold smile once more. "Yes," he said softly. "You will do very well." Kale sat down beside Yuna a few minutes later. His blue face was pale with worry. "I heard what Rovi told you," he whispered. "About the Keth, about what they do. You should be careful. Maybe stay in your quarters until we reach port." Yuna shook her head. "I will not hide, but they are dangerous." Yuna looked at Kale. Her eyes were calm. Her voice was quiet. "So am I." Kale stared at her for a moment. Then he looked away. He did not know what to say. He had seen many things in his years of traveling the stars. but he had never seen anything quite like the human woman sitting beside him. He wondered what would happen if Dren pushed too far. He wondered what would happen if the Keth made a mistake. Part of him was afraid to find out. Another part of him was curious. The silver mote dropped out of faster-than-light travel on the 5th day. This was not planned. Yuna felt the ship shake. The lights flickered. A low alarm sounded through the halls. She was in the cargo bay when it happened. She grabbed a support beam and held on until the shaking stopped. Rovi's voice came through the ship's speakers. He sounded nervous. "Attention, crew. We have made an emergency stop. There is a problem with the navigation system. We are approaching an old station for repairs. All crew report to the main deck." Yuna did not believe him. His voice was too tight, too careful. Something was wrong. She made her way to the main deck. Kale and Bess were already there. They stood together near the wall. Their faces were afraid. Through the main window, Yuna could see the station. It was old and dark. Half of it was broken. Pieces floated in the space around it like bones from a dead animal. No lights, no signals. It had been abandoned for years. "Why are we stopping here?" Bess whispered. "This place is dead." Kale shook his head. "I do not know." Rovi said repairs. "But there is nothing here to repair with." The ship's docking clamps connected to the station with a loud clang. The airlock opened, and 3 more Keth walked onto the ship. They were armed. Pulse rifles, shock sticks, blades at their belts. They moved through the ship like they owned it. Their yellow eyes swept over everything. Over everyone. Dren walked in behind them. He was no longer wearing his hood. His scales were dark green. His smile was wide. He looked at Rovi and laughed. "Thank you for the smooth delivery," Dren said. "You followed my instructions perfectly." Rovi's forearms trembled. "You said you only wanted the ship. You said no one would be hurt." "I lied." The Keth guards pushed the crew toward the cargo bay. Yuna moved with the others. She did not resist. Not yet. She counted the enemies. 5 guards plus Dren. 6 total. They had weapons. They had numbers. But they were relaxed, confident. They thought they had already won. This was their first mistake. In the cargo bay. The crew was forced to their knees. Rovi, Kale, Bess, 3 other workers that Yuna barely knew. They knelt in a line with their hands behind their heads. The Keth guards stood around them in a half circle. Yuna was pulled aside. 2 guards held her arms. Dren walked toward her slowly. His steps were casual. His eyes were hungry. "Do you know why I took passage on this ship?" he asked. "It was not for the cargo. It was not for the ship itself. It was for you." Yuna said nothing. Her face was blank. Her body was still. "A living human," Dren continued. "A real Deathworlder. Do you have any idea how much collectors pay for something like you? How much the fighting pits would give to have a creature from Earth in their arenas?" He stepped closer. His breath smelled like rotting meat. "You will fight for us. You will kill for us. And when your body finally breaks, we will sell what is left to the scientists who want to study your kind. Nothing will be wasted." Yuna looked at him. Her voice was calm, quiet, empty. "And if I refuse?" Dren laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Then we will hurt you until you agree. We will hurt your friends until you agree. The Keth have ways of breaking things. Even Deathworlders." He reached out. His clawed hand moved toward her face. He wanted to touch her, to show his power, to show that she belonged to him now. This was his second mistake. No one saw Yuna move. One moment, Dren's hand was reaching for her chin. The next moment, he was on the floor. Yuna's utility blade was in his throat. Violet blood spread across the metal floor like spilled wine. Dren's eyes were wide. His mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. He tried to reach for the blade, but his arms would not work. His body would not obey. Una stood over him. Her hand was steady. Her breathing was slow. She had not even blinked. The cargo bay was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. The guards stared at their leader dying on the floor. They could not understand what had happened. It had been too fast. Too sudden. Impossible. Bess made a small sound. A whimper of fear and shock. Kale's translator crackled with static because he had stopped breathing. The two guards who had been holding Una's arms were frozen. Their hands were empty now. She had slipped free so fast that they had not even felt her move. Una pulled the blade from Dren's throat. She straightened up and looked at the remaining guards. Her eyes moved from one to the next, counting, measuring, deciding. He made a mistake, she said. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. He thought I was prey. I am not. One of the guards raised his weapon. His hands were shaking. Stay back, he said. Stay back or we will shoot. Una tilted her head slightly, like a predator studying something small and confused. You can try. The guard's finger tightened on the trigger, but Una was already moving. She dropped low. The pulse shot passed over her head and hit the wall behind her. Before the guard could fire again, she was on him. Her blade opened his arm from wrist to elbow. He screamed and dropped the weapon. The second guard swung at her with a shock stick. She ducked under it and drove her elbow into his ribs. Something cracked. He doubled over. She grabbed his head and slammed it into her knee. He fell and did not get up. 3 seconds. 2 guards down. 5 left. The crew watched in silence. They had never seen anything move like this. Never seen violence so clean, so efficient, so terrifyingly fast. Rovi had lived 40 years in the trade lanes. He had seen pirates and killers and soldiers of every species. But he had never seen anything like the human woman standing in a pool of alien blood. Not a scratch on her body, not a tremble in her hands. He finally understood what a Deathworlder really was. The remaining Keth guards looked at each other. They looked at their dead leader. They looked at their broken companions. Then they looked at Una. She stood in the center of the cargo bay. Her blade dripped violet. Her eyes were calm, patient, ready. She was waiting. Waiting to see if they would make the same mistake their leader had made. One wrong move. That was all it would take. They knew it now. They understood. The question was, were they smart enough to walk away? The 4 remaining Keth guards stood frozen. Their yellow eyes were fixed on the human woman in front of them. Their hands gripped their weapons tight. But none of them moved. Dren was dead. The 2 guards who had tried to fight were broken on the floor. The cargo bay smelled like blood and fear. Una waited. Her blade hung loose in her hand. She was not breathing hard. Her heart was not racing. She felt calm, clear. This was what her body was made for. This was what millions of years of evolution had built. On Earth, humans had not been the strongest. They had not been the fastest. They had not had the sharpest claws or the thickest skin. But they had something else. They had endurance. They had adaptability. They had the ability to push through pain and keep going when other creatures would have stopped. And they had something more. Something that other species did not understand. Humans were persistence hunters. They did not give up. They did not stop. They would chase their prey for days if needed. They would outlast anything. The Keth were not built for this. They were ambush predators. Quick strikes. Fast kills. When their ambush failed, when their target fought back, they did not know what to do. One of the guards finally moved. He raised his pulse rifle and fired. Yuna was already gone. She had read his body language, seen his weight shift, known he would fire before he pulled the trigger. She rolled to the side and came up running. The guard tried to track her. Too slow. She was inside his reach before he could aim again. She drove her palm into his nose. Cartilage crunched. He stumbled back. She grabbed the rifle from his hands and swung it like a club. It connected with his head. He dropped. Another guard came at her from the right. A shock stick crackled with blue energy. One touch would send thousands of volts through her nervous system. Yuna turned to face him. He swung. She stepped back. The stick passed inches from her chest. She could feel the heat of it. He swung again. She caught his wrist and twisted. The joint made a wet popping sound. He screamed and dropped the weapon. She hit him in the throat with the edge of her hand. Not hard enough to kill. Just hard enough to collapse his windpipe for a few seconds. He fell to his knees, gasping for air that would not come. Two left. They stood near the door. They had not joined the fight. They had watched their companions fall one by one. Now they were trying to decide whether to run or fight. Yuna made the decision for them. She picked up the fallen shock stick and threw it. Not at them. At the door, controls beside them. Sparks flew. The door locked with a heavy clang. No escape now. You have two choices, Yuna said. Her voice was steady. Drop your weapons and live. Or fight and die. One of the guards snarled. His pride was stronger than his fear. He drew a blade from his belt and charged. Yuna sidestepped. Her foot hooked behind his ankle. He tripped and fell forward. Before he could recover, she was on his back. Her arm wrapped around his neck. She squeezed. The cat struggled. His claws scratched at her arm. He thrashed and twisted. But Yuna's grip was iron. She held him until his movements slowed, until his body went limp. Then she let go. He was not dead, just unconscious. He would wake up with a headache and bruises. That was more mercy than he deserved. The last guard dropped his weapon. His hands went up. His yellow eyes were wide with terror. Please, he said. Please do not kill me. Yuna looked at him. She saw the fear in his face, the desperation. He was not a warrior. He was just someone who had followed orders. Someone who had not expected any of this. She lowered her blade. Open the door, she said. Get on your ship. Leave. Tell everyone what happened here. Tell them what happens when you try to cage a human. The guard nodded frantically. He fumbled with the broken door controls. After a moment, the door slid open. He ran through it without looking back. The cargo bay was quiet. Yuna stood in the center of the room. Around her lay the bodies of the fallen. Dren, his guards. Blood and broken weapons scattered across the floor. She took a slow breath. Her hands were shaking now. The calm was fading. The reality was setting in. She had killed someone. She had hurt others. She had done things that she would remember for the rest of her life. But they had given her no choice. Behind her, the crew was still kneeling. They had not moved during the entire fight. They had watched everything. Kale's translator made a strange buzzing sound. He was trying to speak, but no words came out. Bess had tears running down her furry face. She was shaking so hard that her teeth chattered. Rovi stood up slowly. His forearms hung limp at his sides. His small eyes were fixed on Yuna. How? He whispered. How did you do that? Yuna wiped her blade clean on her jacket. She slid it back into her belt. Her hands were still trembling, but she kept her voice steady. On Earth, she said, hesitation gets you killed. Rovi shook his head slowly. He had never truly believed the stories about Deathworlders. He had thought they were exaggerations, myths, tales told to frighten children. Now he knew the truth. The stories were not exaggerations. If anything, they did not go far enough. Kale finally found his voice. It came out as a croak. Are they all dead? Yuna looked at the bodies on the floor. Dren was dead. One guard was dead. 3 were unconscious or injured. 1 had run. Not all, she said. The ones who stopped fighting are still alive. Bess looked up at her. Her large eyes were filled with something that Yuna could not read. Fear? Gratitude? Awe? You saved us, Bess said softly. They were going to take us, sell us, and you stopped them. By yourself. Yuna did not know what to say. She had not thought about saving anyone. She had only thought about surviving, about stopping the threat. The rest had been instinct, but she supposed Bess was right. She had saved them. In the end, that was what mattered. We should check the ship, Yuna said. Make sure there are no more of them. Then we need to get out of here before that one comes back with help. Rovi nodded. He was still staring at her, but there was something different in his eyes now. Something like respect. Yes, he said. You are right. We should go. He turned to the crew and began giving orders. His voice was shaky at first, but it grew stronger as he spoke. They had survived. They were alive. That was what mattered. Why Yuna helped move the unconscious guards to a storage room. They would leave them at the next station for the authorities. She did not look at Dren's body. She did not need to dot as she worked. Kale approached her. His blue face was pale, but he managed a small smile. I was afraid of you before, he said. Now I am afraid for anyone who crosses you. Yuna almost smiled. Almost. Let us hope no one else tries. The silver moat's engines hummed to life. The ship pulled away from the dead station and turned toward the stars. Behind them, the darkness swallowed everything. The station, the bodies, the memory of what had happened. But Yuna knew that some memories could not be left behind. Some things stayed with you forever. She returned to her quarters and sat on her bed. Her hands had stopped shaking. Her breathing was normal. But inside, something had changed. She was not just a cargo handler anymore. She was something more. Something that the galaxy would learn to respect, or fear. 1 week later, the silver moat returned to Velora's drift. The station looked the same as when Yuna had left. Busy, loud, full of ships and traders and travelers from 100 different worlds. But something had changed. The whispers were different now. Before, the other species had whispered about Deathworlders with fear and curiosity. Now they whispered about one Deathworlder in particular. A human woman. A cargo handler. Someone who had killed a Keth slaver boss in less than 3 seconds. The story had spread fast. The guard who ran had talked. He had told everyone who would listen. About the human who moved like smoke. Who struck like lightning. Who had ended a crew of 6 without breaking a sweat. Some said the story was exaggerated. Humans were strange. Yes. Dangerous, maybe. But not like that. Not that fast. Not that deadly. Others were not so sure. Yuna walked through the station with her head down, just like before. She wore the same simple clothes, the same heavy boots. Her face showed nothing. But people moved out of her way now. They did not look at her with casual curiosity anymore. They looked at her with respect. Or fear. She did not know which one she preferred. The station authorities had questioned her for 2 hours. They had records of Dren, records of his crimes. The kidnappings. The trafficking. The people he had sold to the fighting pits who were never seen again. When they learned what Yuna had done, they had not arrested her. They had thanked her. You did the galaxy a service, the lead investigator had said. That creature hurt many people. You stopped him. Yuna had nodded and said nothing. She did not feel like a hero. She felt tired. She felt changed. She felt like someone who had done something necessary but heavy. Something that would stay with her after the questions were done. She had gone back to work. But work was different now. Merchants approached her every day. They offered her jobs on their ships. Security positions. Escort duties. Protection on dangerous routes through pirate space. "We need someone like you," they said. "Someone who can handle trouble." Yuna turned most of them down. She had not come to space to fight. She had come to work. To see the stars. To find something different from what she had left behind on Earth. But the offers kept coming. And she started to wonder if fighting was what she was meant to do after all. On the third day back, Kale found her in a small restaurant on the station's middle level. She was eating alone. Rice and vegetables. The same meal she always ate. Simple and familiar. Kale sat down across from her. His blue face looked healthier now. Less pale. Less afraid. "I wanted to thank you," he said, "for what you did on the ship. To saving us." Yuna set down her chopsticks. "You do not need to thank me." "I do." "We all do. Without you, we would be—" "I do not want to think about what we would be." Yuna looked at him. She remembered how nervous he had been when they first met. How his hands had shaken. How he had been afraid to look at her directly. "Are you still afraid of me?" she asked. Kale thought about this for a moment. Then he smiled. "Yes," he said. "A little. But it is a different kind of fear now. Not fear that you will hurt me. Fear of what might happen to anyone foolish enough to hurt you." Yuna almost smiled. It was a strange feeling. Warmth in her chest. Something close to belonging. "That is probably wise," she said. Later that day, Bess came to see her too. The small Merrick brought a gift. A small stone from her home world. It was smooth and gray and fit perfectly in Yuna's palm. "For protection," Bess explained. "My mother gave it to me when I left home. She said it would keep me safe. But I think you need it more than I do. Or maybe you do not need it at all. Maybe you are the protection." Yuna held the stone carefully. It was the first gift anyone had given her since she left Earth. "Thank you," she said. "I will keep it with me." Bess smiled. Her large eyes were bright. The fear was still there, somewhere deep. But it was smaller now, outweighed by something else. Something like friendship. On the seventh day, Yuna was standing at a docking bay when a stranger approached her. He was tall and thin. His skin was silver. His eyes were black and shiny like polished stones. He wore expensive clothes, fine fabrics in dark colors. He moved with the confidence of someone who was used to getting what he wanted. "Park Yuna," he said. It was not a question. The human from the silver moat. Yuna turned to face him. Her weight shifted slightly. Her hands hung loose at her sides. "Ready. Who are you?" "My name is Varys. I represent a private security firm. We protect convoys through the Rift territories. Dangerous routes. Hostile space. The kind of work that requires special skills." Yuna studied him. His face was calm. His posture was relaxed. He was not a threat. At least, not the kind of threat she needed to worry about. "What do you want from me?" Varys smiled. It was a practiced smile. Professional. "We want to hire you. We have heard about what you did. About how you handled 6-armed Keth alone. That kind of ability is rare. Valuable. We pay well." "Very well." Yuna said nothing. She looked past Varys at the stars beyond the docking bay window. Millions of lights. Millions of worlds. A galaxy full of danger and wonder and things she had never seen. She had come to space to escape. To find something new. To leave behind the violence and struggle that had shaped her. Life on Earth. But maybe violence was not something she could escape. Maybe it was part of who she was, part of what her world had made her. And maybe that was not a bad thing. The Rift Territories, she said. That is deep space. Pirate clans. Smuggler routes. Ships disappear there every day. Varys nodded. Yes, it is dangerous. That is why we need you. Una thought about the cargo bay on the Silver Moat, about Dren's face when he realized his mistake, about the fear in the eyes of his guards when they understood what she was. She had not wanted to kill, but she had been good at it. Terrifyingly good. And there were others out there like Dren, others who hurt innocent people. Who captured them? Who sold them? Maybe she could stop some of them. Maybe she could make a difference. She looked at Varys. Her decision was already made. Where do I sign? Varys smiled again. This time, it looked almost genuine. Welcome to the team, Miss Park. I think you will fit in very well. He handed her a datapad with contract details. Una took it and began to read. The pay was good. The benefits were solid. The work was exactly what he had described. Dangerous. Difficult. Deadly. Perfect. She signed her name at the bottom of the contract. Park Una. Human. Deathworlder. Security specialist. The title felt strange, but also right. Varys took back the datapad and nodded. Your ship leaves in 3 days. Dock 17. Do not be late. He turned and walked away. His footsteps echoed through the empty docking bay. Una stood alone by the window. The stars stretched out before her like an endless ocean of light. Somewhere out there, danger was waiting. Enemies were plotting. Innocent people were suffering, and she was going to do something about it. She reached into her pocket and touched the smooth gray stone that Bess had given her. For protection. For luck. For remembrance. She did not know what the future held. She did not know if she would survive the Rift Territories. She did not know if she would ever see Earth again. But she knew one thing for certain. She was not afraid. She was the girl from the Deathworld. And the galaxy was about to learn what that truly meant.